What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty War Zone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, we're talking trades, and that's not just here at the Dynasty War Zone. That is across all of the Player Profiler shows this week. We're talking redraft trades, seasonal trades, dynasty. We're talking trades this week at Player Profiler. But I'll tell you who I will never trade. That is my co-host. You know him better as the man of the hour and the man with the power, Jerry Sinclair. Buddy, how are you?
That's because the fourth round rookie pick that you would get for me is not going to be worth it.
Buddy, you are a bargain at twice the price.
I appreciate it. Good to talk to you. How are you, my friend?
Good, man. Good. So I know there are people, I've read the reviews, and people don't always like the preamble to the show, the kibitzing, the house baseball, I get it. So tonight you're not going to get that. We're going to blast through this super quick, because we have a shit pile of stuff to cover and we ain't got a shitload of time. So let me get into this real quick. One thing I want to tell you about is if you're subscribed on Player Profiler audio or YouTube, while you're there, hit pause, slide over to the Dynasty Warzone channels and subscribe to both feeds. Though there will be some redundancy, but there will also be lots of other new shows. Before I hit record on this one, I dropped the latest edition of the Dynasty War Games. Dallas is doing rookie content. We're going to wedge Dallas into the trade show today. I don't know how, but we're gonna. And lots of good stuff. So if you're watching or listening on the Player Profiler feeds, that tells me you're either a YouTube or a podcast consumer. Hit pause and then also subscribe to our feed. It helps go a long way. I'll tell you what else can help you go a long way is the Daily Dominator. The Dominator show, it's on Saturdays. Good friend Billy Muzio and Bradley Stadler. It's a show. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. Bradley is good in his own right, but Billy last year was number one overall in Fantasy Pros rankings.
It's like,
Jerry, can you get higher than number one?
Nah, you cannot.
And Bradley himself is a top-notch ranker as well. If you watch live 9 p.m. Saturday night, the Dominator with Billy and Bradley, and you ask questions in the YouTube chat, like if you're that person who wants like that validation or that, hey, yep, you're making the right decision. Hey, should I start him or should I start him? You know, what should I do with my flex? It's a great show. It streams live, Player Profiler's YouTube channel. I'm sure it'll be a podcast at some point, but this is the key of subscribing everywhere. The one thing that we take a lot of pride in here at Player Profiler, and I consider myself, and I'll speak for Jerry here, we take ourselves here at Player Profiler and us sister shows, we take you guys, the listeners, very seriously. If you have comments, questions, and like this show's not live right now, but if you have a question, just at me on Twitter. Slide my DMs. Hey now. But you get the point. That's what's great about this. Check out the Saturday Night Dominator with Billy and with Bradley on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Cannot stress that part enough because it won't be a podcast, because it's hard to ask a question during a live show if you wait for the podcast, Jerry.
That is very true.
Truer words were never spoken. And you want to hear some more true words? Let's hear about Underdog from our boy Matt.
It has been 2 years since Josh Larkey paved the way for fantasy gamers to start expecting positive returns from pick'em games, specifically Underdog pick'ems. And how do you do it? Well, you look at a slate and you find a great shootout or a sneaky shootout. You also look for a shit show game. 3, 4, 5, 6 guys in one game. That's right. You can do it. You can do it. And you can 100x your payout on Underdog. Think about week 1. Jets-Bills was a shit show. Did we see the Aaron Rodgers injury coming? No, but we knew the Jets have a good defense. We knew the Bills have a good defense. Why not expect the worst? And the worst is what we got. So if you had gone Dalvin Cook less than, Garrett Wilson less than, Aaron Rodgers less than, Josh Allen less than, Gabriel Davis less than, boom, 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 you can go 6 for 6. Same thing in week 2. Oh, week 2. Oh, sneaky shootout there in Philadelphia. Minnesota's going to be in comeback mode, so we'll go Cousins, Jefferson, Hawkinson, more than, Madison, less than, but also Swift, more than. Boom, 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 boom. That's how you do it with the Underdog Pick'ems, and you use promo code Underworld to get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You put in $100, Underdog matches that deposit up to $100 with promo code Underworld. Go start picking.
There it is, our boy, the Podfather. We got Underdog out of the way. We got the Dominator on Saturday nights out of the way. Jerry, let's talk trades. And I'm sitting on a good I'm sitting on a good people bad tweets. It was sent to me by one of our patrons, Steve, Mr. Gambino. Steve, I'm going to bump it one more week because of the request of a trade spectacular. That's what we're going to be spectacular tonight, Jerry. It's going to be a trade spectacular. But I found one today, and I don't know if it's a good people bad tweets or maybe it's just one for conversation.
Okay.
And this one is brought to us by Josh, and his Twitter handle is @Josh_Dino. And Josh says, if you're serious about winning a Dynasty championship, you don't have any first-round picks left. You've traded them all to give yourself the best chance to win it all. Never be half in, never be half out. You're either trying to win it all or you're rebuilding. That's the tweet, Jerry. So when I read that, you've seen this tweet because I sent it to you earlier. What do you think about the concept of, as a contender, you should have no first?
I mean, you really have to be a contender to sort of do that. And it also depends on what time of the season. Like if you want to talk about it nowish through the next couple of weeks, I guess I can sort of dig that ideology. Because what's the first going to help you with? Is it going to help you win money? Not necessarily. So I think that is, to use a cliche, that is living in a vacuum. And I guess I can understand your backing for it, but I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen yet. And like you always say, you want to wait until the end because
you stole my gimmick.
Good.
The first thing is the first thing is this. It made me cranky. Like I'm the old man yelling at the cloud now.
I'm hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired and I work with fucking children.
That's kind of how I took this tweet, and I actually saw it. It was retweeted by Jax Falcone. And in a vacuum, I have no problem with trading your first as a contender.
100%.
I just don't believe in trading your first like now. Like we're going to talk about trade deadlines when we get into the body of the show, and I'll ask you about what your thoughts on trade deadlines are. But for me, it's like I have no problem doing that. But I think if you wait closer to the deadline, or if you're in a league without a deadline, if you wait until the end, your first is going to go further. Like if you try to trade that first in like now, or even like 2 weeks ago, you're not getting as much money or as much of an ROI or return on that first as you will at your trade deadline, which could be week 12. I know a lot of teams do week 12 with the Thanksgiving week. And I dig that. It's a couple of weeks before the playoffs. So I'm not anti that. But that's when I want to move that first, because here's the thing that you're right. Waiting is always good because you avoid the injury. Because, man, it sucks out loud if you trade for a guy in like October and he goes on the IR and you never get to use him to win that championship. That sucks. So that's why I'm always an advocate. If you're going to make the big trade, and I consider any trade where you're moving a first a big trade. To me, that's a big trade. I'm pretty chintzy with that. But also by waiting, by week 12, there are more teams out of it. More teams will be vying for that first. And so that when you're moving it like at the trade deadline, you just tell them, hey, look, I want to spend a first on a running back. I want to spend a first on, it's a tight end premium league. I want to spend a first on a tight end. What do you got? You should have upwards of 8 teams. If you're in a 12-team league, you should have 8 teams knocking on your door going, hey, here's what I got. Here's what I got. Whereas if you're doing that right now, maybe you're not the only person trying to buy that extra running back. And you may have to overpay in like week 7, whereas you may get a lot more. You may get like that same type of player, like a Raheem Mostert plus a second back for a first. I don't know that I would make that trade. It's the first thing that popped in my mind. But Jerry, what do you think about my little addendum to this tweet?
I think it's good. And that's what I'm saying. His last 2 sentences there, never be half in or half out. I can dig that, right? You want to have a strategy. You want to stick with your strategy. And not having a first, or having a first, is not going to help you score points. So it's not helping you win. I can get it. And then you're either trying to win it all or you're rebuilding. The problem is you don't want to piss value either, though. So yes, you could trade them first, and yes, you can help yourself, but there's still the playoffs, and you can still get unlucky in this game. Now,
100%.
You could have drafted Josh Allen 101 in your Superflex startup, and you went against CJ Stroud this week. You lost because CJ Stroud dropped a 40 bomb on you, and that can happen in the playoffs also. And so now you're sitting with a whatever the hell you got to try and help yourself win. You're not winning, and you don't have that first, and you piss value, and you hurt yourself in the long run so that you can try and win more often. So I get the sentiment. It deserves a little bit of an asterisk.
Yeah, and I agree. I do like that you should never be half in, half out. But at some point, you also, we've talked about this too, you can't be the team that lives in a perpetual state of rebuilding.
100%.
Maybe because rebuilding,
which is an endemic problem in this league or in this game right now.
100%. And it's funny. It's like with this new baseball team I'm coaching, because I'm coaching now with my son and his teammates, and I'm like, the first thing, because some of these guys came from teams where they were like 5-27. The first thing I told them was like, it's not okay to be a loser. It's okay to lose. But being comfortable and accepting of losing is like a plague. And that translates over to Dynasty. You get so accustomed to losing and just making draft picks, that becomes the part of the game that you get good at, except you never really get good at it. So there is some nuance to this. He even said that he didn't want to he didn't want to be more of middle of the road. He intentionally made this tweet polarizing to kind of get the traffic that he pulled because and he admitted it. So, I don't know what to do with Dana White. So I'm just going to go with this one.
I don't give a shit what that guy thinks, what he has to say or what he writes. Good for him. He's pulling good traffic.
So you're not worried about the
I don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck.
Pulling good traffic.
All right. Well, speaking of traffic, so this is the thing where, again, I mentioned our channel, the Dynasty Warzone YouTube and podcast channel. I mentioned our guy Dallas. Maybe later in the show, Jerry and I will need like a 5-minute break, and we'll get Dallas in here to tell you about his most recent rookie on the prospect premonition. But I sent out a tweet, Jerry. It was an innocuous, random tweet. So I was preparing for this show. I'm the one who prepares. I do a lot of preparation for this show. I send Jerry a show sheet. So I was doing some quarterback stats, and I just happened to notice, hey, how does Sam Howell, because you stack rank the quarterbacks by yards, and I noticed Sam Howell's ahead of CJ Stroud. So I looked a little bit further, and I put those two in a comparison, and it's like wins. Both guys won 4 games. Now, Howell has lost 5 because the Commanders have yet to have their bye. The Texans have already gotten their bye out of the way. So there is a 1-loss difference. Sam Howell has passed for 2,471 passing yards. That's 275 a game. Mr. Stroud, 2,270, 284 a game. So Stroud is averaging 9 more passing yards per game. Both have 14 touchdowns. Sam Howell has pretty much double the amount of rushing yards, 157 to 78, and both have 1 rushing TD. And currently, in your standard ESPN style scoring, Sam Howell is the QB5 on the season. I mean, again, he hasn't had his bye. I'm going off total points. And CJ Stroud is the QB7 because, to Jerry's point earlier, he dropped a 40 burger. Never did I think that I tweeted this thing out at 1:30 this afternoon. And 36,000 impressions later, it's amazing how many people are sideways. Jerry, did you take any did you take just the simple reading? And if you're not following me on Twitter, or you're not normally on Twitter and you want to see it, go at DWZ Memphis. You'll find it. It's my most recent tweet. Do you take that as pro? Because you're my co-host. Do you take that as pro Howell or anti Stroud, or what do you take from that?
Well, I think the reason you're getting so much venom is because people think it's anti-Stroud, and it's not. Where in the fuck is
what the Marines say, Jerry?
Sam Howell. What do they say?
The assumption's the mother of all fuck ups. You're just assuming it's anti. You've listened to this podcast. I've never been anti CJ Stroud. Never once. I said that he would probably be like a solid, like a Jared Goff guy.
Yep.
And ironically, like on a points per game basis, his stats are very similar to Jared Goff. As ironic as it is, and I've never been pro Sam Howell. Have you heard me all off season since last? Have you heard me ringing the Sam Howell bell?
No.
So that's the context. So, but what do you think?
See, the problem is that CJ Stroud is coming off of a game where he absolutely set his nuts on the Buccaneers' chin, and anybody who ever had him probably took him at 103 in their rookie drafts. Then they saw that, and then they saw evil betraying of their trust and their honor Randall Young tweeting venom against CJ Stroud for Sam Howell of all people, and they got all hot and bothered, buddy. The thing about the tweet is it should I mean, listen, Sam Howell has thrown a hell of a lot more interceptions. He's had the bye week. So, you know, he's not on the same level as CJ. But he should at least be talked about. And I feel like he is cast off into, and I am part of that problem too. We have not had long, extensive talks on Sam Howell, believe it or not, on this show. Bro has been a viable option. Like you said, QB5 at this point.
I just traded for him.
And add a bye week in there. Let's say he goes down to QB10. If I told you Sam Howell was going to be QB10 after week 9, what would you have done? I bet you would have shit a brick.
Well, I mean, part of this was coming for because I was looking for like some trade targets, and I was trying to, you know, I want to give you guys, and we will. We want to talk about a QB that you can potentially trade for, or like some running backs. And Sam Howell's going to be a guy I talked about because he's a guy that I personally traded for. But I just found this interesting, and I started looking at the teams that he played, and it's just he's been solid. Has he been spectacular? No. I mean, he's had great games, but against Philadelphia, he just lit up Philadelphia.
But what is his acquisition cost? Cheapest?
I'm cheapest
quarterback to acquire? I mean, pretty damn close.
I am getting ready to tell you. So I just thought I would throw in that, since we're in the good people, bad tweets, and this was tweet related. I was just like, holy shit. So I think a lot of people had this, Jerry. It's not Dana White, but people read that tweet, and this was their gut reaction.
Emotional damage.
People had some emotional damage on there. So I'm going to ask you in a second, but this segues nicely into this because I asked you in the show sheet, have you done any recent trades? Now, there's a league that I'm in. I'm going to win this thing, not like as in I'm going to attempt to. Like I'm going to win this thing for the 4th out of 5 years in this league. You know, 4 firsts and a 4th will feel really nice. A half a decade of dominance in an industry league. You want to rub their faces in it, right, Jerry?
That's true.
I came into the season with my quarterbacks of Deshaun Watson and Josh Allen, and between injuries and just. Now, Deshaun Watson's not having the greatest game in the world. It should be the greatest season in the world. But I needed some depth. You know, I didn't have like a good QB3. So I started looking. Hey, Sam Howell. He's on a non-contender. The team 3rd from the bottom has Sam Howell. And this GM is out collecting first right now, right? Now, again, I'm going to win this. I'm going to try to win this thing this year. And I've got a great team. I've got a really stacked team. It's a good mix. So I sent, now this person, because we had done a trade earlier in the season, this person had my 2nd. So, which is currently the 210. Okay.
Gotcha.
So I sent the 110, the current 110. It could drop. I don't think it will be any better than the 107, but I sent the current 110. It's going to be the 112, but it's currently the 110 and the 310. So I sent my 1st and 3rd, and in exchange, I got Sam Howell and the 210. So basically, it was a round flop. It was moving back 12 picks and a 3rd. And I got the guy who's currently the QB6 overall and added depth to a championship roster. And I feel like I did pretty good. What are your thoughts?
I feel like it's probably pretty good. I mean, you need Sammy to continue doing what he's doing for sure.
I
But
look at his schedule, pretty solid.
Yeah. I mean, but like let's say you didn't want to go get Sam Howell. Like, who else are you going to go get that's going to help you potentially win for the cost of moving back around? Nobody.
That was kind of my thing.
Carson Wentz. And does Carson Wentz actually help you? No.
Ironically, I already had Carson Wentz in this league.
See, well, you had him for free.
It's like this week. It's like it gives me some flexibility. Josh Allen has not had his bye week yet, and Deshaun Watson this week has what, at least on paper, looks like a very tough matchup against Baltimore, whereas Sam Howell has a very favorable matchup against Seattle. So I wish Deshaun Watson was who I thought he was when I acquired him and who he was 2 years ago, but he's not.
No.
So I need that third option. I need that additional option in those tough weeks where where Deshaun Watson is playing a Pittsburgh on the road, or he's playing a Baltimore. I'll be happy to play Deshaun Watson in a game against Cincinnati where I think it'll be more of a shootout. But for me, it was just giving me that extra depth, and no one else is going to round flip you for a quarterback in a super flex league for anyone else in the top 10.
There is a lot of situations, and there's a lot of people out there listening right now who are in quarterback hell. We made a trade today, and in that league, I have Aaron Rodgers, I have Daniel Jones, and I have Matthew Stafford. Do you know how many quarterbacks I can start, Randy?
0.0.
So if you have any single one of those, and you're slightly in better luck than I am in having all three of them, you're still going to need a quarterback. And let's say you're relying on Kyler Murray. You know what Kyler Murray's going to do? I doubt it. Someone like Deshaun Watson, like you said, the more darts you have that you can throw with the board, the better chance you have of hitting a bullseye.
Yeah, and it gives me some matchup flexibility in a league where I'm contending. And I do want to talk about Sam Howell later, about what we think his value is going to be going into 2024 and beyond. And we'll get to that. But you've mentioned other quarterbacks that are producing at this level. Currently, Sam Howell putting up 17.6 at what I call ESPN scoring, per game.
4 points, touchdown, blah, blah, blah.
That's better than Dak. That's better than Goff. That's better than Purdy. Now, this is on a points per game basis because, again, he's had his bye, and some guys haven't had their bye. On a points per game basis right now, he's right there with Justin Fields. Anthony Richardson was half a point better. So I'm getting a guy that on a per game basis has been doing really, really well. And he put up a 31 burger. Yeah. So he's got that capability of dropping. So like other guys in the top 10 current total points that I might be able to get is Josh Dobbs. But what does Josh Dobbs look like a year from now? He's not starting anywhere really. He's a nice fill in. So I think for a round flip, now I get a first is way more valuable than a second.
Of course.
But to only move back 12 picks and throw in a third, to get a guy performing at this level, to be, doing Cousins-esque stuff, I thought was a big win.
Yeah, and I'll never let a third get in the way of a good trade. Ever.
100%. This is a great trade partner. I don't want to mention the name because it gets weird. You don't want anybody.
But they're also probably happy that because they didn't acquire him for 110, they profited
100%, 100%, and now they have 3 firsts in a class that should have 3 or 4 QBs in it. Got some really good wide receiver talent, and this person's rebuilding. So for me, I think it was a good deal for both sides. What I tried to do is just use that value of just seeing a first for Sam Howell, and that's how I got the deal done. But you and I got a deal done today. You mentioned this just a second ago.
We did.
This is a league that's in its 3rd year. I won it the first year, not so humble brag. Last year, good friend of the show and Dynasty Warzone alum, Tyler Orjanzinski, kind of got that right.
You butchered the hell out of it, but it's fine.
I did. He and his partner, they have a co-owned team. They won it last year. This year, I'm right in the mix. The Devon A-Chain draft is going to help. I'm going to get Kyron Williams back. But it's a tight end premium, 2 points per catch. and you must start two. And Jerry had one of the hottest tight ends in the game today, Mr. Taysom Hill. Now, I've got Evan Ingram. I've got Hunter Henry as like my tight end 2. But then I got guys like Mike Gesicki. I got a rookie that I really like in Michael Mayer. So I looked at my friend Jerry. Jerry does not have a lot of picks because he kind of made that move preseason to go all in, moved his future first, and things have not worked out. So I offered you what is going to be an early second, probably 201 to 203 or 4, Michael Mayer and Sky Moore, and in return, you sent me Terry McLaurin and Taysom Hill. So what were your thoughts on that deal?
This is the league where I have Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, and Aaron Rodgers. So while it started pretty good, that league, as you could imagine, it has collapsed dramatically. Also, had Alvin
you've got
Kamara.
Good players.
Yeah,
I got your lineup pulled up. You got Kamara, Walker.
Yeah, but he was out for 4 games, so I missed opportunities there.
Getting hot.
Javonte's finally.
You had Terry, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf is probably the one who let you down. And in the 100%. Format, like you had Jonnu Smith, tight end 1 in Atlanta. I just love saying that.
Yeah,
you had and then it's like some of the like the journeyman guys that you had, you took a shot at Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, I mean he's been iffy, but yeah, it was essentially it's been Jonnu and Taysom Hill, and then Hayden Hurst whenever I have to. But we just said that lineup, and nothing about that lineup with no quarterbacks says this is good enough to win. So I had to do something. And what is Taysom Hill going to do for me? Not a thing.
Well, he's probably a cap casualty next year. So I'm renting Taysom Hill, to be honest.
So like what? He does nothing for me. And listen, even if Michael Mayer never really becomes anything, I at least have a shot to play him. And Taysom Hill is not going to be that. Like I can't. So I'll take it. Terry McLaurin's what, 28, 29?
Yeah, he's right
like
there.
Yeah, and I'm not winning. So it was a good deal for me. I'll take that for sure.
Yeah, because I do like Michael Mayer. We've seen flashes. You're a year away from really seeing what Michael Mayer is, because I don't think Aiden O'Connell's the guy. He's certainly not there for a long time. I would not be surprised if at some point they don't go back to Jimmy G. But for me, 100%. Like I'm going all in without going all in. I mean, I got a good young quarterback to build around. I got Trevor Lawrence. I've also got Derek Carr and Russell Wilson. So I now have the Hill Carr stack. That's very helpful. I've got a couple of young running backs. I've got Achane. I've got Breece Hall. I've got Najee. I've got Tajay Spears, Rashad White, Kyron Williams. I've got a really good team, and my wide receivers equally as loaded. Not as young at wide receiver, but pretty loaded. I got Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, and now got Terry McLaurin, thanks to you, Calvin Ridley, Cortland Sutton, Adam Thielen. And we have to start 12 in this league.
Yeah.
12. So you're playing 2 QBs, you're playing 2 tight ends because you have to. And then you got to find 8 other positions. So you've given me some depth, and you've really given me a guy who has been hot lately. And I think now that they're winning more using Taysom Hill, you're only going to see more Taysom Hill.
I agree. He is one of the most underrated tight ends that there is, honestly, because he's not like a tight end, but a fantasy startable tight end. I mean,
well, the rushing yards. I mean, you get rushing yards, receptions, touchdowns. I mean,
nobody ever brings him up, and he's probably like the 5th or 6th best tight end, and he's cheap as hell.
Well, I super appreciate your kindness. Now we may come back if we have time at the end of the show. We may come back because I may try and Jerry's not a Devon Achane guy, so it may be hard to move Devon to Jerry because I'm not going to get the full ROI from Jerry because he is just not a fan. So real quick, and then we'll take a break and bring Dallas in. What are your thoughts on trade deadlines in general in Dynasty? Are you pro trade deadline? Are you anti trade deadline? What are your thoughts?
I'm not anti-trade deadline. Like it's not one of those mountains that I'll scream on top of, but I don't think we should have them. Yeah, I feel
Hello,
like
and
we do everything to build our rosters how we need to build them. We should be able to do it whenever we need to. I understand that some people don't want to do it in the playoffs, but if I've gotten all the way and I lose a star player in the semifinals and I'm playing in the championship, I don't see why I shouldn't be able to make a trade. If it can benefit somebody else, I don't know. I am absolutely for no trade deadlines. Because here's the thing. We all know the people we play with for the most part, at least not necessarily know them, but we are usually pretty comfortable with the people we are in leagues with. And shenanigans just does not really happen. And if shenanigans happens, then of course you bring it to the league and it gets discussed and it gets resolved. We are all adults when it comes to that. So we should not stop. It's like in football, if they fumble the ball and then the ref blows the whistle, that's what the trade deadline is. No, let the ball go and then we'll review it after. We'll see if the defense actually picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown, or if he stepped out of bounds. Don't blow the whistle. Let's see how it goes. That's my thought on a trade deadline.
For me, if you have to have a trade deadline, and I'm not opposed, I'm kind of neutral on trade deadlines. I do believe that trade deadlines keep the league on the rails. It keeps the person from going all in and just absolutely trading every future first, every young piece of talent just for one game. Because inevitably what happens, whether that person wins the league or not, there's a high likelihood that within a year that person's gone, win or lose. I've seen it too many times. But if you have to have one, or you believe in them more staunchly than I do, then week 15, that's playoff week, at least it should be. If you're doing 3-week playoffs, 15, 16, 17, we're never in week 18. But if you're in week 15, 16, 17, then Thursday night of week 15 at 8 o'clock is when your trade deadline should kick in. You should give all 6 or however many teams that you have in your playoff, you should give those GMs up until that kickoff of Thursday night, the last possible minute to make that deal. And then if you want to make them play with the roster that got them there for weeks 15, 16, 17, I don't love it. I understand it, so I'm not hating. Those are my thoughts on trade deadlines. I do think they're important because I do think they can save a league.
Nah.
Well,
listen, if you put regulations in place, you should be okay. Like if you trade your future first, you either pay for your league or you pay for half of it. Like we have in the league that we've been talking about that we made the trade.
Yeah.
If you trade your first, you pay for that year.
Oh yeah, I guess I got to pay Nate because I no longer have a first or a second. You know, I think he was maybe letting me. Not that I'm going anywhere. I mean,
right.
I'm sticking around the league, but the rules are the rules, and I agree. I think if you're not going to have a trade deadline and the season's almost over, you know, pony up. Cool. Hey, maybe there's the new rule. Any trade done after the start of week 15, any trade from that point going forward, you must, if you move your first, you must pay the previous year's dues in full. You know, you can Venmo, PayPal, whatever the hell to your commissioner. If you live in the same city, you can bring him a handful of cash. Well, however you want to do it. But I think that's the thing that's going to keep that person in that league. Because the league I'm referencing, this was an industry league, by the way, and a person that I love, by the way. And it came down to he and I, my second year in the league. And he went all in, like literally, like he traded for, this was the year that Lamar Jackson won the MVP. And he went all in. He got Christian McCaffrey, who also had a huge year. Yeah. And he beat me in the finals. But then in the offseason, his team wasn't as good. Both McCaffrey and Lamar got hurt the next year. He had no firsts, you know, in that year's draft and then the year after's draft. And then he, to his credit, he made it through the next season, but then he was gone. And I think a large part of it is that two of his big studs in Lamar and CMC that year got injured. He didn't have any rookie picks, and he didn't have any young upside talent to trade for rookie picks. He put himself in a quagmire that now, and then the GM that came in and took over this team, they're still not all the way out of the rebuild yet. They're still pulling the nose up. They're probably a year away from being a year away. So that's the ugly underside of not having a trade deadline, in my opinion. It causes you to make deals. It causes you to make a deal in week 17 that you would not dream of making in week 7.
100%.
And sometimes you need to save you from yourself, and the rules can do it.
I got to do that for sure.
Absolutely. Well, what we got to do for sure is we're going to take a couple of minutes. We're going to take our normal 5-minute pause, and we're going to hear about Dallas. No, we're getting right back to trades. We're going to give you some trade targets for both me. We'll hear some of Jerry's, but let's hear about a 2024 rookie. If you've got those rookie picks, maybe you can draft this guy.
This week's episode of the DWZ, that's right, the Dynasty Warzone's very own prospect premonition. It is great to be here talking about another potential 2024 rookie prospect that is going to be popping off for your Dynasty teams. For those of you not familiar, as always, here on the Prospect Premonition, I will be looking into my crystal ball to give you the details of a college football prospect. This week, we are going to be diving into another tight end of note in this year's class that is destined to be a part of your Dynasty teams for years to come, specifically as rookies and sophomores, because we like those early hitters, folks. And as a reminder, I'm not talking about the big name guys. I try to stay away from the big name schools as much as I possibly can. There is some trickle down effect that happens. And when I can't avoid the Power 5 conference, I do have a tendency to pick the guys on the teams that no one seems to be talking about. That is the case on today's episode as I dive back into the tight end position. For those of you that did not hear the first episode about Ben Sinnott from Kansas State University, the true junior tight end, make sure to go back and listen to him. But I have one that is even more athletic and more drool engaging here at the tight end position in the form of none other than Bryson Nesbitt out of the University of North Carolina. The Tar Heels is who we're talking about today. All of the communication that we've had about this Tar Heels team over the last 2 years has been centered around Drake May, and justifiably. But in the mix-up of looking at his tape, of looking at the success that he's had with the previous wide receivers and running back tandems that he's had on the team over the last couple of years, and the changing of weapons, there has been a steady Eddie in this offense for the last 2 seasons. And that is Mr. Bryson Nesbitt at the tight end position. Give you a little bit about him. He is 6'5", 235. He's a little bit on the leaner side. He, in all reality, has kind of a similar build when you're looking at him to a guy like a Chase Claypool, a little bit leaner. He's probably going to come in a little bit under 6'5", to be real with you, but he's around that 230, 235 range playing. And because he has that leaner frame, this man can fly. If I talk about one thing with his game, it is his explosive nature. When you see him on the field, he is able to move around, quick, twitchy underneath, and his ability to separate is what just draws you in when you're watching him on film. He has been the steady Eddie, as I said, over the last 2 years for this offense, and his ability in the open field with the ball in his hands is pretty great. It's pretty wild when you see a tight end of note on a Power 5 team that is also involved in the return game. And that is what you have with Bryson Nesbitt. Realistically, he's going to be an option at the next level to return kicks, specifically kickoffs, because his ability in the open field is so good. You see it a lot with the smaller, stockier build tight ends that we've had over the last couple of years, the Jonnu Smiths, the Chika Kwankwo's more recently than a Jonnu Smith. But Bryson is a little bit bigger of a build. As I said, his underneath work is where he really eats, but that's the type of game that you typically see from people that are returning kicks. You want the shifty, able to make space out of nothing type of players, and that is what I always look for when I'm looking at the tight end position. Nesbitt is that guy. As of right now on the season in 2023, he's got 29 receptions for 440 yards, over 15 yards per clip average, and 4 touchdowns. Very consistently producing. I will say UNC UNC does not have a very difficult schedule, and the one game that they've had all season against a ranked top 25 team was against Miami, who was 25 at the time, kind of faltering and proving that they shouldn't have probably been ranked at the time. And in that game, he only had 2 receptions for 13 yards. So he hasn't really shown a true ability to off really as much. Also, sorry, random video just started playing for some reason on my recording device. But as I was saying, hasn't really shown a ton of success against those Power 5 teams over the last couple of years. You can look at his 2022 season. He had a couple of pretty good performances in the overall haul against some top 25 teams, but nothing otherworldly. It's really just his steady Eddie, consistent producing ability at the tight end position. He's realistically on pace this year for about 800 receiving yards and right around 9 touchdowns on the season, right around 80 receptions. And when you look at UNC, I like the fact more so than anything when you're looking at him that with all of this overhaul at all the other skill positions, he's been the guy that's basically built the rapport with Drake May over the last 2 years. May likes to sling it, likes to go deep. He likes to spread the ball around, which is kind of, what you get when you're looking at a UNC type of offense. But Nesbitt is the chain mover. He's the underneath target. He's the safety blanket. And in the red zone, right inside that 20-yard mark, that's where he's super dangerous. 3 out of his 4 touchdowns have happened inside the 20 in the red zone. It's where the team looks for him primarily. But as I said, on 3rd down, he is the chain mover. A lot of people are going to look at him and not really have a lot to say negative about him, which is something that I always kind of keep my eyes out for, just for the negative side of evaluation purposes, as everyone should. If you can't find a true hole in there, you're probably ignoring something. His ability to willingly get out in space and make blocks on the edge is pretty good and pretty solid. He's always going to stick his neck out there. But I think his true fault is being more of a move tight end. He's not going to really contribute that much in the blocking game as of right now. He hasn't shown strides or anything like that of improvement, but he's a guy that I really liken in this class to be my tight end 2 so far. Haven't finished all of my evaluations. Obviously, there's a lot of football, another 8 weeks basically to go until the end of the college playoff season. And so a lot can change between now and draft time, but I really like the mold that Nesbitt puts out there. His ability to be a matchup nightmare underneath, the ability to immediately lock onto a team, even if he does slip to that 3rd or 4th round, as most tight ends have a tendency to do, and be a contributor on special teams, coming in to be a very unique build at the tight end position that we don't see very often. So again, this has been the Prospect Premonition. I just dropped you a little bit of a nugget on Mr. Nesbitt out of the University of North Carolina, tight end, number 18, very flashy, very good with the ball in his hand. Make sure that you're paying attention to him, because as I've said, and as I say about all the prospects I talk about on this Premonition series, they're destined for success, and you need to get ahead of the curve in understanding who they are as players. Until next week, have a good time, everyone.
There you go. Sounds like he's pretty good with the ball in his hand. And speaking of guys who's good with balls in his hand, Jerry, we're back with you. Let's jump into some trade targets, guys that you're looking to add. We've already talked about quarterback. The only quarterback that I really had would have been like Josh Dobbs. And Josh Dobbs is fine. I think the most I would pay for Josh Dobbs is a contender 2nd, because I know I'm setting it on fire. But let's be real honest here, gang. I've set many a 2nd round pick on fire, so I'm fine. If you need some, the problem with Josh Dobbs is he comes in the first game or 2, he's fine. Then teams get the beat on him, and he plays like hell. That's kind of there's a reason why he's been a Steeler twice and a Brown twice. And there's a reason why teams keep moving him. Is he's fine, but he's never going to – he's like a lesser version of Jacoby Brissett. So if you're looking for that level of quarterback play, maybe you lost Kirk Cousins recently, fine. But I'm not paying more than that for Mr. Dobbs. What about you, Jerry? Do you have a quarterback target?
No, it would have been him. I mean, we talked about Sam Howell.
Well, I do want to talk more about Sam Howell because that was one of the questions I got asked in this tweet is, what do you think Sam Howell's future is in Washington beyond 2023?
I think he probably gets another year.
I think he gets at least another year.
Yeah. I mean, I actually did just make a trade for Dobbs in Patreon 4. Him and Mac Jones, actually. I traded 2 seconds and I got both of them.
You said Mac Jones, not Mike Jones. Who?
Yeah, no, because I lost Daniel Jones and I am out Stafford. Apparently, I just had a thing with acquiring the same quarterbacks that love to get fucking hurt. Thanks a lot, Jerry. But anyway, that team's 6-3. It's in good shape. I got a nice young core except for my quarterbacks. I lost all of them. So obviously I needed to do something. I had the 201 and I think it's like the 204. So I traded them both, got Mac Jones and Dobbs. So at least I can do something for the rest of the year. Because honestly, at the core, this team's very good, very young. So I have actually made a quarterback trade. Look at me.
Well, the quarterback I want, I mean, like Sam Howell. So this was the deciding factor. Is they're currently 4-5. I look at their schedule and I see another 3 to 5 wins on that schedule. And if they win 8-9 games, A, they're going to be like in the playoff mix, and B, they'll have enough wins they really won't be in that pocket to even land the second the second tier of quarterbacks. Obviously, tier one's Caleb Williams and Drake May. Then you have that next tier for me, at least so far from what I know to date. It's Quinn Ewers and Michael Penix Jr. You know, those will be the next guys that probably come off the QB board. But do I think, I ask myself, do I think he's in danger? And the thing of it is that the part that makes me concerned is that the new ownership group with the guy who owns the 76ers, does he clean house? Does he get rid of the GM? Does he get rid of the head coach? You know, I know there's a lot of thought that maybe they keep Eric Bieniemy. That would be like a saving grace. But at the end of the day, I did my own little version of a risk analysis on the situation. And I think I'm going to have Sam Howell for at least this year and next year. That justified the trade that I made earlier. But that's about as far as I'm willing to go. Because if he gets through next year, that's the end of 3 years. Then they have to decide if they're going to make him the long-term guy. But,
yeah,
you know, the numbers aren't horrible, Jerry.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He'll at least get the shot to start next year. I mean, he'll have to, you know, do his thing to keep it going.
If he makes it to next year, he's taken a bajillion sacks. But luckily, I don't play in a negative points per sack league. So as long as he doesn't get hurt, I'm good, because the one thing I like about him is that he's not letting this ass whooping get him down. Running backs, I put on my board, you know, they're at various costs and various points in their career. Raheem Mostert, Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry. I noticed you added Kareem Hunt to the sheet. What do you think about my guys? I'll just tell you with Kareem Hunt, I like Kareem Hunt.
He's just scoring touchdowns. That's why I wanted to put him on there. And he's cheap.
Dirt cheap. And Jerome Ford's already, you know, he's kind of quasi playing through an injury.
But he could also be on that. Yeah, he could be on that list for sure.
But neither one of those guys are here for a long time. They're here for a good time. So you make sure you stay cheap. The thing with like Kamara, I think he will not be a Saint next year. They're so far over the salary cap. They can't afford to pay him what he's due next year. Derrick Henry is a free agent. Josh Jacobs will be a free agent. And Raheem Mostert, he fits classically in that category that we started the show with that you can't overpay early in the season. Raheem Mostert is like 31 years old and has a littered injury background. I mean, he's ended more than one season on the IR. So he's the kind of guy that if I was going after any of these guys, because, you know, Henry, Kamara, Jacobs, they're going to go for a little bit more, especially if there's a bidding war amongst contenders. And I'm cool getting in that mix, but I'm only cool doing it like around the trade deadline or week 15, because then I'm in. If they're healthy and I'm like, okay, I may be buying this guy for 3 weeks, but if that 3 weeks gets me a championship, it's all worth it. Then it's worth it. But like given these guys, with the exception of Henry, you know, with Henry, there's like the injury concern. So those were my guys, Jer.
I can dig all of them. I don't know, because Mostert he's scoring so much right now. He's probably not going to be a value. Now that said, when Devon A-Chain
comes back,
Yeah, and that's the thing. So when he comes back, the perceived value is going to take a hit for Mostert for sure. Whether the actual production takes that big of a hit, I'm not sure. So yeah, I can dig all that. And Josh Jacobs has started to look a lot better. Alvin Kamara, I mean, bro, just
Missed 3 games, leads the league in like running back targets and receptions.
yeah, it's wild.
It's
It's
a cheat.
absolutely wild.
He's a cheat code right now.
So I can dig all of that, and none of them should be overly expensive. Josh Jacobs still probably semi-expensive, I would guess, but not what he was 365 days ago.
100%. So let's get into some wide receivers now. I noticed you added Amari Cooper to the list. I had Adam Thielen and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has had a bye, and brother is the wide receiver 4 on the season.
Animal.
Literally, the every team knows. Like the Jets this week knew. It's like it's Keenan Allen. It's like if you're the DC, you're driving to the stadium. You're probably driving a nice car, nice SUV. Defensive coordinators feel like pickup truck SUV guy. Maybe I'm wrong, but you're in your SUV. You know, probably big tires on it, and you're thinking to yourself, you know, if I can hold down Keenan Allen in the passing game, I can probably win this game because you got no Mike Williams. Josh Palmer's banged up. Quentin Johnston is the drizzling shits. So that leaves Keenan Allen, and he's unstoppable. And to a lesser degree, Adam Thielen. He is 33 years old. And he's the guy that same thing as he's the wide receiving version of Mostert. Last 2 years, dude gets hurt. And he's probably gonna, but if he's not hurt going into week 15, I don't mind investing a little bit of draft capital, or maybe a young guy. Like maybe someone wants Kendre Miller for whatever reason, you know, or a Roshan Johnson. I don't love giving up Roshan Johnson because I think next year he could be really good. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do to win leagues. So I had Adam Thielen in there. And then you put Amari Cooper, Jer.
I mean, he's on pace for like 1,300 yards. I mean, he's not scored a ton of touchdowns. I mean, that situation has been wild. But like, if I told you that Amari Cooper was on pace for almost 1,300 yards, I bet you would be pretty surprised about that. I mean, I think 4 of the last 5 games, he's had like over 80 yards, a couple over 100. Like he's had some stinkers. I think he's had 2 or 3 stinkers, and then just a bunch of really solid games. And he's cheap because everybody is sick of hearing about him because we've been hearing about him for 8 seasons. And that is too damn long in the mind of dynasty players. He has long lost all of his luster. Just half a decade ago, he lost all of that. And now he's just vanilla ice cream. And
he's been doing it with backup quarterbacks. PJ Walker, Texas Ranger.
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. But he had season highs across the board last week with Deshaun Watson. Yeah. I don't know, but he also this coming week he's playing the Baltimore Ravens where he had a season low. But I'm looking at his game log. I mean, he could give you a 25-point game, which he did last week. He also did that in week 3, and he's also going to give you a stinker like he did in week 4.
Yep.
But to Jerry's point, if you acquire him now, he's always been pretty healthy throughout his career. Plus, he's passed his bye. You know, I know that's more of a redraft mindset, but
it isn't. You got to get wins, and you know the standings are a big deal. You're either going for a bye, you're trying to get in, and if you're going against somebody who has a bye, and you're putting in your stud in that spot, I mean that's just giving you a better chance. I mean he's also just cheap, which is great. Like if you're a contender and you're just sitting on Cooper Kupp and he's just not helping you win because you got Brett Rypien or whoever the hell else is throwing
Carson Wentz, baby.
Carson Wentz is there now.
We're
which is good. Which is good. Don't get me wrong, but well, let's see. I'll take a couple darts at that position, and just in case Carson Wentz is going to do Carson Wentz things, go after somebody like Amari.
I think that if you are a contender, I think we can get into Carson Wentz next year. This one's running up on time, but I do want to get to tight ends. We already talked about Taysom Hill. I think he's super acquirable right now.
100%. Always.
And if for some reason, like in the league that you and I are talking about, he's got tight end designation. If something happens to Derek Carr, they're not putting Jameis in, guys. They could have done this earlier in the season when Carr was banged up. Now I know Jameis played a half, but if he gets any kind of quarterback play, goal line work, I mean, he's kind of their version of like a weird version of Jalen Hurts. And then I think the other guy, like it's more of a premium name, so you're going to pay up, but it's George Kittle. Dude's 29. And I know tight ends can play a little bit later, but there are some guys that just play the game so violently. When I say some guys, see Kittle, George, he's the kind of guy who plays the game at that level. Like no snaps off, which is great. That's the kind of dog you want on your team, like in real football, but it shortens your lifespan. And when you have to pay a premium in Dynasty for a guy with a short lifespan, it's kind of concerning, but I love what I've seen out of Kittle the last few weeks with Purdy, especially as they're not dominating. And they said today that, you remember earlier in the season, you and I had concerns that the Niners were going to overuse Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan came out today and said, well, maybe we've overused Christian McCaffrey. No shit. Huh. Never. Oh, yeah, we did think about that here at the Dynasty Wars. I was like, your goal is not to win September, dude. Your goal is to win the Super Bowl. So why are you taking a guy who's missed significant time with injuries for multiple seasons and just hammering him in games when you're already up? But I think this is a long-winded way of saying that I think George Kittle could be really good. And in tight end premium leagues, when you still have to fade Kelsey and Andrews and Hawkinson and even Laporta, you could do worse than George Kittle.
Oh, for sure. It's still expensive. You're definitely giving up some things to get him, but I can dig that because he's another guy like Amari, where it's just we've talked about him for so long that some of that luster has worn off, and he's very boom or bust. Just to keep using cliches, he has bad games, and then he's got those George Kittle games.
Maybe you were a contender who had Dallas Goedert, who looked, he's on bye this week and looks to be going on IR with a broken forearm. And maybe you have to do what I did. Maybe you don't want to part with your first in tight end premium, and I can totally understand that. Can you send your second and then like a young upstart guy like Michael Mayer, like I just did to Jerry? Can you move a guy like that with promise? Hey, here's a pick because you need some other young players on your team. Here's a young tight end to replace the current tight end. I think he feels good, and one that I don't think that you'll get because of the 2 games he's coming off of. But Jake Turd Ferguson, man, a guy that we were both into, earlier in the offseason, what was Jake Ferguson? Because, I don't think Dalton Schultz was all that special last year. I think it just happened to be whoever's the tight end in a Dak Prescott Dallas Cowboys offense. So that's another name.
Even though Dalton Schultz has been pretty good with Stroud, but also Stroud is fucking – he's throwing it 470.
Okay,
he pooped his pants last week.
But Schultz was fine last week. He had actually his best game of the season.
No. I'm saying the week before that. The week before that, I think he had a stinker.
It was one of his worst games of the season. But see, this is what they do in the Olympics, Jerry. Right? You probably weren't surprised by a baseball reference. You might be very surprised by the
Olympic reference.
by the Olympic reference. But in the Olympics, when they're calculating your score in events like gymnastics or what have you, they take out your best score, they take out your worst score, and they average the rest. That's who you are. So when you're looking at a player, maybe you're trying to look at game logs and you're like, who is this guy? Take out the best game, take out the worst game, and average the rest. That's more than likely who you're going to get, Jerry. What do you think?
I think that is a kick-ass show, my friend.
Kick-ass show. We're not done, though. We're going to bring this thing home. I do want to take just a minute to tell you about a little tool that you can use to help you with your Dynasty endeavors.
Now, I know many of you are looking for a secret weapon for your Dynasty League, and I have it. It's called the Dynasty Dominator app. You go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's right there. It's $5 to download, and then every year it's $5 to load the next incoming class of rookies. You can add Superflex, add tight end premium. It's incredible because it allows you to look up players. It allows you to vote on whether a player is a buy, hold, or sell, and then see the market sentiment on that player. And you can compare their lifetime value rating from Player Profiler to their Dynasty ADP at the FFPC, all in the price lookup tool. And beyond that, we have a trade analyzer, so you'll never lose another Dynasty trade again. And in our settings, you can set this is a win now team, this is a rebuilding team, and then we let you compare players. Look at their metrics side by side. Prospect metrics, NFL metrics. It's all there. It's $5 in the App Store. There's some add-ons for Superflex and to buy the upcoming rookie class. Every year, you're going to spend $5 on this thing, and it's going to be well worth it.
Now, Jerry and I are still dear friends with the guys at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. Love the DTC, love Izzy, love JP, love Mosier, love the whole gang. They're good people. But their app, which is a great trade calculator, it doesn't have all the other stuff of the Dynasty Dominator. So there's no perfect trade calculator out there, but for $5, and then you got to load the new class. That's just, that costs money, by the way. Matt has to pay someone to load all of it in there. You got to, update the app. That's not free, but $5 a month is a pretty good tool. Would you agree, Jerry?
100%.
And maybe you don't like those. Maybe you want to deal with real people. Well, also for $5 a month, you can come join the Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. You can use Jerry or myself like a real life trade calculator. You can use the group chat. That's what they do all day long. Hey, what do you think about this trade? Wait, it's great. It's Dynasty Gamers helping Dynasty Gamers. You get one-on-one advice from me or Jerry or the group or whatever. And again, it's just $5 a month. So if that interests you, head to Dynasty Warzone's Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. Jerry, that's a show. I was going to try to work with you on another trade, but I think we've ran out of time. Maybe I'm greedy and cheap, and that's not a good combination when you're trying to get deals done, especially in a league. And by the way, be like me, and not all the time, but be like me in this case. Be the one who gets the action going in this league. I'm a contender. They saw the deal that Jerry and I made. The commissioner said, nice trade, guys. And I was like, I went full Billy Mays from the infomercial commercial guy. I was like, oh, but wait, there's more. And I've been, firing out deals left and right. So this is the time to make your dynasty trades. And Jerry will tell you, one of my little tips is like, I just throw the chum in the water. In this league, I said, I'll move Devon Achane, non-contenders only. And I've already started engaging in conversation. So be the catalyst in your league. Be the one who's proactive. Because, Jerry, would you consider this point scoring season?
Yeah. Yes,
okay, so it's currently, as we record, it is November 8th. What is the value? Happy birthday, Sister Jerry. What is the value of Adam Thielen in 4 months?
Third, maybe at best,
if you're lucky. But like right now, you could probably get a contender second.
Even more than that, probably.
I remember, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. You're trying to get rid of Adam Thielen. If you get a second for Adam Thielen, you run like a thief in the night. You run like you stole something, because in 4 months from now, 3 months from now, to quote Jerry Sinclair, Adam Thielen will not be worth a wet sock. Not a wet sock. If you get to rookie time, so that's like 6 months from now, you get into May, and you try to move someone Adam Thielen for like the 308, you're going to get a big fat go fuck yourself.
You absolutely are. So when they're on the clock, not a shot.
So you're never going to get more for, again, the Raheem Mosterts, the Adam Thielens. And if you're a contender, there's nothing wrong with paying those prices.
100%.
100%. There is nothing wrong with paying those prices.
To quote homie Josh _Dino, don't be either half in or half out.
You're either trying to win or you're not. So if you're not trying to win, you need to be getting the Adam Thielens and the guys like that off of your roster. And with big name players, like guys that are around that 29-30 as wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, like, are you ever going to get more than you're going to get for Tyreek Hill right now? Right now. That's a multiple first player. You're going to get a 24 first. You're going to get a 25 first. And if that other GM gives you any shit, you ask them, where else are you getting 25 points a game? Where else are you going to get a wide receiver locked into an offense like this?
You're not.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. That's how you sell. But I don't believe you get much more than a first for Tyreek Hill in March. I truly don't.
It depends. Honestly,
It depends on
yeah,
the league and the
first,
GM and everything's
but
different. I get it, but you're not
you're
getting
not
much
getting
more now.
two. You're not getting two
No,
first.
Lord, no. In March,
Yeah,
2 months
no.
away from rookie fever. You got Mel Kiper on the TV with his great hair, eating pumpkin pie, talking about all these.
Half of the Dynasty universe will convince themselves that whoever is on the clock at 105 is more valuable than Tyreek Hill.
Oh, yes. There will be someone out there, and we're not going to get into Marvin Harrison Jr. He's kind of a unicorn, not necessarily of this planet. But
I heard that about Jackson Smith and Jigba too, and you know what I'm not seeing is points getting scored.
There's a difference there between those two. I know you're a Michigan, at least from the state fan. See what I did there? Michigan State fan. But there's going to be like a wide receiver in this class. And when you get on the draft, there's going to be someone who's going to convince themselves, or another Dynasty show is going to convince them that 103 is worth more than Tyreek Hill.
100%.
And that could be whoever it is, whoever was the third wide receiver in this year's class, whether it was Zay Flowers, start to say Jones, Zay Flowers, or someone else. This past May, someone would have made a case that person's more valuable to your fantasy team than Keenan Allen. Really? How are you feeling about that in November when Zay Flowers is fine for a rookie, but he's not scoring the points that Keenan Allen is? You have to make moves that correspond with your goals and the time of the year, because if you don't, you're leaving money on the table.
Yep.
There you go. That's how we're going to end this one. Please check out all of our sponsors, whether that's the Dynasty Dominator app, whether that's Underdog, patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. And if none of that's in your budget or needs right now, give the show a review. Subscribe everywhere, Player Profiler and Dynasty Warzone channels. That helps us all out. It makes us look cool to the guys at Player Profiler like Matt and Billy and Theo. We want to look cool. The powers that be, our Player Profiler overlords, want to keep those guys happy. They're good to us, but they are the overlords. They're benevolent dictators. So anyway, great show, Jerry. Thanks for the trade. Maybe while I'm editing, maybe I'll get you on the phone. We'll talk up another trade. But you want to do another one next week?
Oh, 100%.
Let's do one next week. So anyway, that man's name is Jerry Sinclair. We call him the man of the hour and the man with the power. Follow him at Jerry Sin DWZ. You can follow me at DWZ Memphis to see if I besmirch the good name of CJ Stroud any further. And remember, I'm not. But anyway, remember, here at the Dynasty Warzone, we're just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. According to Jerry, we're coming back to do another one next week. Have a great week, guys.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.